Monday, August 10th. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, SSH.
Let's do this.
So this week, sucks ass. Ass.
How much ass does it suck?
This is like the 1 week where I got to work the night shift, like the European midnight to 9 a.m. to train the guy who's going to be actually working that shift. And let me tell you, New York is the city that never sleeps, except at 4 in the morning.
Well, I mean, it's only sleeps at 4. See, the thing about New York City is that it's true that it doesn't sleep. However, the thing is, in New York City, there are many different neighborhoods.
Oh, no, Scott, no. I wandered around. I even took the subway down to other more happening places. There's basically nothing going on, except if you go far enough away from Midtown, there are 1 or 2 bodegas open.
Yeah.
That's about it.
That's it. Midtown is an area where it's pretty
Scott,
much
I'm saying,
just office
even if you
buildings.
leave Midtown, there's nothing going on at 4 a.m.
You got to go to the residential places where people live.
Even if you go to those places, there's not that much going on except a couple of bodegas, 1 McDonald's that's 24/7. But I learned something else. Mm-hmm. McDonald's doesn't even serve breakfast at 4 a.m.
Uh-huh.
They don't start that until 5:30.
You got to go. There are places. You just got to know where they are. But it is true that most shit closes. People got to sleep, man. I guess there are bars that might be open.
Yeah, but it was amazing to walk around the city, and there were a lot of people walking around, but nothing was open.
But at 4 in the morning?
Yeah, when I went to lunch.
Wow.
I just wandered outside. I wanted to see what it was. You know, I never get to hang out in Midtown that late.
Yeah, that's a lot of people, huh? 4 a.m.?
Well, the weird thing is a lot of people took the train in the morning, at midnight yesterday, and a lot of people took the train out at 9 a.m., but it was
there must be a lot of night workers.
No, it wasn't workers. It was all like families.
Huh.
It was all like mom and kids, but not that many guys. And there were a lot of weird people on the train going in the opposite direction. A lot of loud people having weird conversations.
Very strange.
This whole experience is just surreal.
Well, you're only gonna have to suffer it for a week. It'd be weird if it was surreal every day. Eventually, the surreal would become non-surreal,
Yeah.
and then when you went to like the city at a normal hour, you'd be like, "What the fuck?"
It's just crazy.
Yeah. Well, it's always stuff like that's always cool in small doses, though.
Yeah, the thing is, I'm tired. Partly, I was gonna get some sleep this morning. I'd come home at like 10 a.m. and then go to sleep. Except that the power went out like 3 times.
I came home, I saw that immediately. All the clocks were off by like 4 hours.
Yep.
My computer was off. The hallway computer was off.
I'm asleep and the power goes out, so I get woken up by the UPS shrieking and no AC, nothing to do, and it's hot. So I open the windows and I turn on my fan.
It's hot as hell today.
I turn on my fan.
Uh-huh. Still, that doesn't help.
Well, the fan didn't do anything because there's no power.
Oh, fuck. Spritz yourself with some water.
I just stood in the shower. I did that way back.
Cold water?
I was at the University of Michigan at this like marching band thing, and I went by myself because it was sort of this like honors thing. We had to apply for it, and stupidly, I listened to Knitter, my instructor, and I applied for this thing, and I got in. And then I learned that no one else applied for it because it sucks. So I get there, and it's super hard, and everyone's a jerk, and I'm like the only person from my school, and it's like 1,000,000 degrees.
Wow.
So as I was walking out of the showers to go to bed in this unair-conditioned hellhole, I see a guy who has pulled a chair into the shower, set it on a low cold trickle, and is just sleeping under it.
And you copied him.
I did the same thing. I didn't stay there all night, but I laid there for a while.
Yeah, if you stayed there all night, you might have gotten sick. But well, it'll be interesting. We'll see what happens. We'll definitely learn.
I may die.
You'll learn lots of things, and I will learn them by proxy. Hooray for me.
What I've learned pretty much is that no amount of money could make me do this shift. There's nothing in the world that could make me work midnight to 9 a.m.
Thing is, that's not true, because what if someone gave you like $1 billion for like a week? You would do it for a week, and then you'd be like, sweet.
Well, let me put it this way: no reasonable.
And you quit, and
no reasonable amount of money, and 2, I would not do it for more than about a week.
$500,000 a year.
That wouldn't be worth it.
$1 million a year.
Wouldn't be worth giving
$1 million.
A year of my life is not worth that.
$2 million.
Not worth it. I wouldn't do it.
$5 million.
Nah.
Really? 5 million?
I would
You
not.
could basically work 1 year and never have to work again.
I wouldn't do it.
That's like baseball player money.
You try this shift. It's not fun.
I know, but for $5 million, I do it for 1 year, and then the rest of my life, do whatever the hell I want. It'd be totally worth it.
I don't know. One entire year of kind of when I'm still at one of my, the physical prime of my life is not worth $5 million because I can't get that back. I can make $5 million some other way.
Maybe, but I could live in the luxury Manhattan apartment if I got paid that much money. And I'd basically just walk down there at night, and oh man.
But then you wouldn't have that much money left at the end of the thing to show for it.
I would, because I wouldn't spend the money like a dumbass.
But the luxury Manhattan apartment
could only be like $3,000 a month. So that's what.
It's a lot more than that.
Well, for a small yet luxury apartment, I saw some that were only $3,000. Anyway,
I don't know about luxury. You're thinking luxury in the.
I'm not talking. I'm not talking
luxury.
Famous person luxury. I'm talking luxury as in it's actually new and has a parking space.
No, you're talking luxury like when they say luxury apartments in the Bronx, they basically mean these aren't shitholes.
Exactly
They're
what I'm saying.
reasonable.
Yes, exactly. It's nice. It's clean. It's got modern appliances. It's got a parking space. It's got enough room to sit and such.
So that aside, we should get right into this because
Yes.
I gotta go to work.
So here's my news. I'll make it.
What do you got?
So check this out. I have this problem where I have a bank in Connecticut where I grew up and I spent 16 years of my life, 17 years of my life, right? And I just never changed banks. And why should I? It's just a lot of work and there's not much benefit to it. And I can use pretty much any ATM I want. I have really good online banking. All my direct deposits already set up. So why should I change the bank, right? The only time I ever actually need to go to my bank is if I need to deposit a check on the rare occasion someone gives me a check. And it's sort of annoying, but I can just mail it home to my parents who still live in Connecticut and they deposit it. But this one bank came up with a solution, and the solution is so simple and so obvious, I hope my bank does it. You take a picture of your check with your phone, right? I guess both sides of the check, I assume. And then you void the check, and then they take care of it. And, of course, they won't let just anyone do this, right? You have to be, not a schmuck. Like if you got lots of debts and shit and don't have good credit, they won't let you do this because you'll probably fraud them and whatnot. But, if you're not defrauding anyone and you check out and you've got, money, they let you do it. It's totally cool.
I just wish I didn't have to use checks at all.
I know. Checks are so old and they're totally... There's no reason to have them anymore. People should be able to exchange money directly with each other in a card/PayPal fashion without fees.
It's partly the bank's problems in that, my bank just won't wire money to people without all this hassle. Like, wiring money is such a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I should be able to go to a website, type in my friend's number that he gives me, some a secure number, right? And then give him an arbitrary amount of money at no cost, directly from my checking account to his checking account. And I shouldn't need to pay PayPal a fee. I shouldn't need to pay the bank a fee. I'm just giving someone money. It basically just some bits have to move. It's like a text message. It doesn't cost anything, right? So
no, it does actually cost something in terms of, there's a lot of regulatory stuff about tracking where money goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's in a database. One record in a database is
now,
not
it costs money to have people to kind of maintain all that and watch it and to file all the paperwork they have to file.
Yeah, that's the cost I pay just having a bank account in general.
You don't pay anything to have a bank account.
Huh, but it costs something to have a bank account, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't.
See, the bank makes its money because they're holding on to my money, investing it, and reaping rewards from it. That's where they get paid. So they shouldn't pay me. I shouldn't have to pay them fees to do stuff.
I think the real
they're
problem...
They're getting paid by having my money.
I think the real problem is that the vast majority of people don't even... they would never even care about something like that, so it'll never happen.
I think a lot of people would like it a lot.
Not enough people for it to matter. I mean, no bank is going to do it, and then all the other banks are going to follow suit or anything.
That's true, but I think this bank is doing it, and if it helps, I think slowly but surely banks will be sort of just it's going to be slow, but more stuff like this will happen, and then eventually what I just said will happen, and then it'll be a good day.
I don't think it'll be anytime soon, though, really.
It's going to take a while, maybe 10 years.
Because remember, you still have to interface with people who just don't get it. I mean, I still have to write checks to my stupid landlord.
I know, right? Hopefully in the city I'll find a landlord who can just directly take the money from me.
That's the biggest thing I'm looking forward to more and more about buying a house is that I can just have that taken care of because I can wire money to the mortgage.
Is the bank, and the bank can just take care of itself.
Well, I also have an escrow account set up for all the taxes and everything else, so I basically won't have to ever do anything unless I run out of money.
But I mean, if you just run out of money, you still won't have to do anything except run away. All right, so
I'd like to talk at least a little bit about Pranknet. Now, you could argue if this is a Monday or a Thursday.
is this
but
some sort of 4chan derivative?
No.
Okay.
Pranknet is that thing where basically people were calling other people and convincing them to do dangerous, stupid, destructive things.
Oh.
Like, hey, you're in a hotel, right? Well, there's snakes, and if you don't break the windows, blah, 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 you might die.
See, I heard about this, right, the other day, and I thought about it for a little while. And the first thing you think, of course, is, wow, these people are stupid doing what they're told over the phone,
No,
right?
I'd actually go one step further. I blame society for instilling in people this kind of immediate and automatic trust of anything that sounds like an authority.
Right. So the thing is, my first instinct here is to blame the people who are on the receiving end of the prank, right? But I thought about it a little bit more. And you know what, actually? Even though I am not going to disagree that those people are morons and it's society's fault, et cetera, I do think the people pulling the prank should go to jail. You know why?
Al Capone.
No, not Al Capone.
That's how they're going to get him, though.
That's probably how they're going to get him. You know what I think is the problem here? Look at the descriptions of some of the pranks they're pulling, right? Like they called someone up on the phone and they're like, yeah, there's a toxic gas leak. You need to jump out the window of your hotel room, right? You know what that is? That's shouting fire in the crowded theater. The thing that you're not allowed to do. That even the free speech crazies like us say you're not allowed to do. And they're doing it.
Here's the thing. I mean,
therefore, I think the pranking people are definitely bad. Because they're yelling fire in the crowded theater.
These tire iron pranks were across, like, they're all over the place. And what is the line between shouting fire and simply, convincing someone stupid to do something stupid?
I think you would have to definitely judge that based on the individual phone call. Because not all the phone calls were, oh my God, there's a toxic gas leak, Some of the phone calls were like something else. And depending on what they actually said on the call, I'm sure hotels record the calls. I don't know what they do. But, depending on the evidence and all that, you would have to make a decision. I'm sure some of the pranks were shouting fire in a crowded theater, and some of them were probably not. And that's up to the court and the jury and such to decide, not for me.
What I find interesting is that, these were some relatively unsophisticated people, and all the reports are that the guy who was kind of running this is literally some loser who lives in his mom's basement and kind of a loner, no job. Just like, he is such a stereotype of that kind of loser.
I think that we could actually probably help society out a lot if we had some sort of law that just gets people out of their mom's basements. Like, you can't live with your mom. You got to get your ass out.
Why not, though? Because a lot of people use that to a great advantage. Just out of college, got a lot of student loans, live with mom for a couple years.
We need, but maybe we need some sort of, at least system to like find these, if we find out that someone's living with their mom after X years.
And they shouldn't have the freedom to live that kind of life?
No, but we should actually, we should check them out to make sure it's not a crazy and such.
So you want to spend more money on some sort of social services program to find the 25-year-old living in his mom's basement?
Yeah, they probably need some help, those people, and they're very dangerous.
Scott, our child services can't even help actual kids who are getting beaten that well.
Well,
so
we need to help them too.
You're going to help the 28-year-old WoW playing basement dweller get away from WoW and or his mom?
Ideally, we would help them all, but we suck. It's the reality versus the ideal. I'm just saying ideally we should help them. I'm not saying realistically we can.
I do feel that the culpability is about 50-50 between the people inducing these people to do the crimes and the people doing the crimes, but...
Yes.
The thing about Pranknet that's interesting is that this was basically just some very unsophisticated people pulling pranks. I'm very surprised that something like this has not happened on a more organized scale, because smart people, the 4chan anonymous types, or even people like us, could basically pull this off on a global scale without any fear
if you
of
want to think about gloom and doom, right? Lately, this has been the week of stuff happening. There was all those DDoSs that were real big on Twitter and everybody, right? There's all this stuff that can we're so vulnerable. It's basically like you're just a duck sort of flying slowly across the marsh, and it's like 100 Elmer Fuds, and that duck just ain't shot yet, right?
Well, it's not that, it's that there were always Elmer Fuds, and there were always guns laying around, but just recently we're having the ratio of Elmer Fuds to guns is getting to a dangerous level.
Yeah, and it's still, I'm so surprised that the worst we've had is a DDoS and this Pranknet. We haven't had just fires and riots in the streets coinciding with,
the thing, the lucky thing,
everyone's hard drive getting erased.
The lucky thing is that most of the people who are smart and sophisticated enough to do these things the way smart people would do them either are not evil people, or there aren't enough of those people with a common goal to organize anything that big. I mean, there's one crazy who wants X and one crazy who wants Y. The two of them will not be able to easily coordinate to get to, do their crazy in pursuit of both of their goals.
So Marvel Comics is right and the supervillains can never actually work together?
I think they were in a degree, except if you watch X-Men, the new one, the supervillains were a hell of a lot smarter than the X-Men were. I mean,
well, heroes are never smart. They were just...
You could have just called Magneto and said, hey, is Professor X there? And he would have been like, yeah, I found him naked and passed out. You guys want to pick him up? But no, they just said Wolverine.
Right? Why didn't Magneto call the X-Men? Should it be like, hey, I just found Professor X all naked. You want to come pick him up? Right? You should have called the other
You know what? He probably did. And Wolverine just didn't check the fucking voicemail.
Oh, well, it's hard to check voicemail in the danger room. You can't really hear the... Anyway.
So things of the day. I'll admit that I very much like to watch computers masturbate, and this is another example of that, and it's very well done. So someone made a Flash game that generates in real time or semi-real time Super Mario World levels, and
so
you can just play
basically,
them.
it just makes Super Mario World levels that are brand new, like totally, not made by humans, and you play them.
Yep.
Pretty cool.
Someone else made a beat Super Mario World's AI.
Uh-huh.
So this is a
can
video.
Just beat any Super Mario World, no matter what?
Any beatable one, at least.
Oh, wow.
So someone put the two of these together, and you can see the logic of kind of the thing charts out like all the paths and all the paths that are going to die and the ones that aren't going to die with red lines. It's
Can it do scrolling levels or only still levels?
I have no idea. I did not.
Scrolling levels means it just has to be real fast.
I did not do any research whatsoever beyond watching this video.
No, okay. Is that it?
That's it.
So Conway's Game of Life, of course.
Yep.
Somebody made a complete computer/constructor in Conway's Game of Life.
Wow.
That's all I got to say.
I remember trying to make AND gates and stuff like that in the game.
They made a complete computer, so this can basically process any program. So
Might take a while.
Might take a real long time, but it's a complete computer as complete. I don't know if it's Turing complete. I had to investigate further, but it's a computer in Conway's Game of Life. You can write programs for it, and it will run them.
People seem to really like taking, look at Little Big Planet or anything like that. People like to take the machines or the physics of a made-up world and make less efficient versions of real machines in them. And it seems to be this huge hobby among geeks.
It's definitely cool. I mean, I totally love making computers out of anything that a computer can be made out of.
So tonight, we won't talk about this too long because there's not that much to say, and we're not going to do here is how to do the things with this, but
no,
SSH,
you can read the man page. Yes, so
SSH is possibly the most used, most important, and most useful tool that any computer person will ever use.
Yes, it's so surprising that...
Yet it doesn't come with Windows.
It's so surprising that SSH, the secure shell, as it is the thing that I probably use more than anything. Of all the computer software in the world, I use Firefox and Secure Shell more than fucking anything else. And I probably use Secure Shell more because I've been using it since before Firefox was around. I mean, pretty much whenever I open a computer terminal, the first thing I'm going to type in is SSH something something and then get to work, right? So what is the Secure Shell? Basically, back in the day, you had Telnet. And you still have Telnet. And what Telnet does is it basically just, you open a connection to a computer on a port, and it sends bits back and forth. And that's Telnet.
What I like to think about, I remember before I was very computer proficient, I didn't know a lot about things, but I had my modem, and a friend of mine had his modem. And I remember being so excited about one day we got the modems to talk to each other, and we both had terminal open, and I typed stuff on my screen. And on his screen, he's like, I see everything you're typing. Oh, my gosh.
Oh, my gosh.
And the fact that the majority of my job funnels through what is effectively that.
Yeah, so if you want to see how Telnet works, right, how it was done in the olden days, go to your command line, even in Windows, and type something like telnet space google.com space 80. And that will make a TCP connection to google.com on port 80. And then type get in capital letters space / and press enter. And you'll see the HTML of google.com will come by. Because all you did was make a TCP connection to the Google web server and tell it get / which is HTTP protocol, right? And then you'll see what you get back, which is the HTML of Google.com.
Well,
right?
one thing a lot of non-technical people don't seem to realize that everything is, other than X, pretty much everything in computing is pretty self-consistent and simple, actually. It's just a lot of simple things that are repeated very quickly. I mean,
a lot of layers. It's a big onion.
Something I often do when I'm working with systems is telnet to a port that is not telnet, because I can just send stuff to that port and it'll respond.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I have a fixed daemon, I can telnet to it, and if I really want, I can construct a message that it will accept as a fixed message and send it.
You know, so when you go to your browser and you type google.com, what do you think it's doing? It's connecting to google.com.
And it's doing 80. Like, it's going get, and then it gets HTML, and then it does stuff
renders.
to it.
Yeah, it's what it's doing. We just can't see that part, and it would be really annoying to use that way, but that's the way the computers talk to
That's
each
the way
other.
real men use the internet.
Oh, that was a big thunder. All right, so...
Oh, way to break the fourth wall. Oh, shit, we're real people in the real world, and there's thunder outside.
That's fine. So secure shell, right? See, one of the most popular uses of telnet was to actually connect to another computer, right? For example, in the olden days, you'd have like a mainframe, right? And the mainframe would run, say, a terminal program, a terminal emulator, a TTY, on port 90. So I don't know, pick a port number, right? And you would go to your terminal, right? Your VT100 terminal, which is not actually a computer, just a terminal, a keyboard and a monitor. And you would telnet, which is it did it in hardware, to port whatever on the mainframe. And then that terminal that was running on the mainframe, that terminal software, would show up on your physical hardware VT100 terminal. And Unix and Linux still work that way on the lowest level. When you go to your Linux machine, if you got an Ubuntu lying around, press like Control-Alt-F1, and you'll see TTY0 staring at you. It's not running on a network port, so you can't telnet into it, but it's running on, this local display, and you can look at it. So SSH is basically a secure way of doing that. Secure shell. You're going to connect to another computer, right? Say from a terminal to a mainframe, or nowadays usually a computer to a computer, right? And you're going to get a shell on that terminal, on that other computer that you can use. So most of the time you would use this, say, I have a web server. I have a computer in my house. I have to connect to the web server and edit some files on it to reconfigure it. Well, I will SSH to the web server. Now I am connected to it, and the terminal from the web server shows up in a box on my screen, on my computer, and I can control the web server even though I'm not sitting right next to it. But it's as if I'm sitting right next to it. And I basically use that more than freaking anything in the entire universe, because I sit at my desk, and whatever desk I'm sitting at, be my laptop, my actual desk, my work desk, right? The computers that I'm working on are not those computers. The computer that I'm sitting at is just a desktop that I'm using, like the browser, whatever.
Do we really need to explain what SSH is?
Yeah, I want to make sure that people know, because I hope the non-tech people will learn to use SSH.
I don't know. More and more I see like the non-tech people don't listen. We got to figure out what to do with the Monday show, because we always kind of reach this middle ground between, this is what a keyboard is and the high-level stuff.
All right, so why is SSH cool, and why did we replace Telnet with it, right? It's mostly an issue of security, because Telnet is just totally plain. Whatever you send out, people can just look at it on the internet. It's not encrypted or secure in any way. If you log into some system over Telnet, everyone can just see your username and password floating over the internet, whatever. So SSH solves this problem with hardcore encryption. Totally hardcore and badass.
That was trivially broken in SSH1 with man-in-the-middle attacks.
Yes. So in SSH2, which is the only one you should be using, and if you don't know what you're using, you're probably using SSH2. That almost nothing uses SSH1 anymore. And this is a wicked old piece of shit machine that no one updated, like some HPUX from 100 years ago. So the way this works, right, is you just SSH to a machine, and then by default it uses like password encryption, but all the passwords are encrypted, so no one can see them on the line. The thing is, you don't want to use that because it's a pain in the ass. Every time you're connecting to machines all the time, all over the place, and you're going to keep typing in your passwords, and hopefully you have a good password. So you're typing it in. It sucks.
Well, now, see, I know where you're going with this, but I have a much more secure and better solution that I use at work.
Really? What's your better solution?
Basically, because of the nature of my work, we have to be able to have central account management trivially. So we use basically we have it integrated with the Active Directory.
Aha, you're using the LDAPs.
So higher level, we're actually using the AD, because LDAP, Active Directory is just an LDAP.
Okay.
But basically, if you're using LDAP directly, you're doing it wrong. LDAP is such an obsolete, just that's not the way to do things. So what I do is I log into an X server that is in our corporate office. And then from that X server, I can open sessions to whatever other servers I want, and I authenticate via Active Directory, and that's it.
Really? That's interesting.
I don't use keys because that would mean that if any computer along the chain is compromised, then everything's compromised. So no keys at all.
But then, so you're like when you connect to the X server, right? That centralized one, right? Then isn't it using the keys to connect to the other servers along the line?
No, it's just a convenience so that I can say, connect to my X session there, and then if I have to go home or leave my computer or something happens, I can just connect to my X session again from somewhere else.
So how do the other computers know that it's valid when you're connecting to them? How do they know that it's cool?
What do you mean? How do they know it's cool?
Is there some sort of like Active Directory agent that like keeps track of it, or what?
Basically, I'm not going to get into the technical details because they're very boring, but yeah, basically whatever Active Directory users' permissions are there for a server are just there on that server. So, this Active Directory account has this shell on this server, and this shell on this server, and this shell on this server, and these accesses to these things.
That's interesting. See, I use the keys, right? And the way the keys work is you basically put your public key on the machine you want to connect to, right? And you have your private key on your local machine that you never share with anyone, of course, as is private. And when you connect to the faraway machine, right, you basically sign something and send it over the line, and the other machine can tell if you signed it. So it's basically proving who you are just because you have this key.
It amazes me how many people just are incapable of setting this up. It's not that hard to do.
It's real easy to set up. There's plenty of how-tos online. And the best thing about it, right, is it's one of the rare instances where something can be A, more secure, but B, more convenient at the same time.
Well, unless there's always the problem of if your computer is compromised and you've got the keys there, well...
That is true. However, your keys, you should keep them close to your chest. And also, you should have a passphrase on your keys, right? So that even if someone gets your key, they can't use it because they don't have the passphrase.
No, so then I just have to type my password every time I log in.
That's not true because there is the SSH agent that you should be using. See, the way the SSH, if you use like Ubuntu or Mac now, they have a key ring. And the way this works basically is you log into your local machine. You activate your SSH private keys. You sort of, by typing in your passphrase, you're like, key, activate. And then, so it knows it's you and your key is now good. And then you can use the key without typing your password in. But then once you log out or the agent dies or anything like that, you're going to have to reactivate the key. So basically, if someone steals your keys somehow, they say they log into your computer remotely and copy the keys, or they steal your computer and they turn it on and somehow log into your account, right? They need to know the passphrase to unlock those keys to make them work. So just having the key is not enough. It's a something you have, something you know situation. But you only have to type in the something you know once each time you sit at the computer so that, it's not inconvenient where you're typing it every time you're logging in.
But the problems with this are that, one, most people use Windows at work, even if they're doing Linuxy stuff.
I know. It's like you got to use the putty and the pageant and the whole setup there.
Putty is just so useless.
Really?
Putty, just because...
I've been rocking the putty lately. I totally figured out how to get all that putty pageant. I got it all to work. It's totally awesome.
I just use, we pay for XWin 32.
Oh, if you're paying for it, well, it's a different story.
It's like night and day.
Yeah, well, actually, I use the Ning X server on Windows with putty, and it just freaking works great now that I know, because I know how to do it. I could see easily, though, how someone who is not an expert at this sort of thing would have a very, very difficult time making it work.
Well, XWin 32 does a good job with their so-called, quote, like live thing. So I have this, whole set of terminal sessions together, and then I can basically close it and reopen it on different computers in real time, and it just kind of takes care of a lot of these basic things on the back end.
Yeah, I can't do anything like that. All I do is SSH to machines, and I can also X forward from the machines.
I've got a terminal
decide to.
that has been running. Basically, I ran something as myself in the foreground, so I have this output that I can see, and this little GUI that pops up. It's been running continuously on that X server for like a year.
Oh, wow. See, if I wanted to do something like that, I would just use new screen. And then when I SSH back in, I would use screen X to get back in the screen session. The screen would run for the whole year, but...
Yeah.
The thing is, I'm also using X a lot less lately. Like on all my servers, I'm just using server edition of Ubuntu with no X whatsoever. Like the only X I actually use anymore is the X that's on my Ubuntu laptop.
I only use X for debugging stuff. Like I'm using this product to make like these fixed protocol gateways where like fixed sessions come
so you
in
have a product.
and they go out. Well, no, when I say product, but we bought this product and it was given to me and they were like, here, this is a product that will do this thing that you need to do. It should take you like 10 minutes to set up. It is not a product. It is a Java development framework. Fuck you.
It
So
sucks.
I've been writing all this Java code, but
it's in X. It needs X.
well,
to run.
no, it doesn't. It's basically it's just Java.
Okay.
The thing is, for debugging purposes, the Java has a nice GUI built in that I can pop up. So when I run this fix router, I can have it pop up a GUI that shows me all the connections on both sides and the
that's
statuses
nice.
of all of them while I'm setting it up. And then when it's done and I know it's working, I turn off the GUI and then I make it a Java like Linux service, and then I'm done.
Yes, yeah.
But I learned something because I forgot. Basically, if you want to run something in the background, independent of your user, to where you can even log off, you like the no hup and all that.
Yep.
Like the best way to do it. I did the no hup and all that on this thing, just not thinking, and suddenly var was full.
Yep.
No, var filled up. Like 80 gigs were full
Yeah,
in
because
like
the
a
standard
minute.
out was queuing up.
Well, the standard out was queuing up, and there was a loop with the standard in because the program. But I have to specify no hup in the thing and specify no hup on the command line.
See,
'cause
I'll just put an ampersand at the end and then use FG and PS to get them back.
Well-
do the foreground FG BG.
Some of this Java stuff though doesn't handle that so gracefully.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter, though,
The
'cause
thing
when
about
I'm done-
Java is you should theoretically be developing it locally because it's it's cross-platform, and then you can just deploy it to the other server.
No, but the thing is, setting up the Java environment is 90% of the battle in Java.
Environments.
Plus, it's
Isn't
also-
is it an Eclipse deal?
Nah.
It
It's also
sucks.
the environment of the network. Because remember, this is a network thing, basically. So the environment of the network and the firewalls and all the different chains, it makes sense to develop it on the server where it's going to be running.
One other thing to talk about SSH, right, to bring it back here, right, is people don't know about the secret feature of SSH. Well, there's many secret features, but the number one, most
forwarding?
important one is the SSH secure tunnel,
Port
right?
forwarding and tunnels are like, they'll solve, anytime you have a problem, it is probably solved by that.
Yeah, so let's say, for example, I don't know. So I've got a computer, and it's got a web server on port 80 where it belongs, right? And I want to connect to that port 80 securely, right? From far away. What I can do is I can SSH to that machine, and I can make an SSH tunnel, right? Which would connect port 80 to, say, port 8080. Then I can SSH to port 8080 and connect that to the port on my local machine. And then I can open up my web browser and be like localhost something something. And it's actually making this big tunnel across the internet all the way to some other machine. That whole tunnel is totally secure. But what happens is there's a port on my local machine that's now securely attached to some port on some other machine across who knows where. And I can just securely connect to anything over SSH. And it's super, super freaking useful in ways that, like, you won't even realize. Like, I'm trying to think of, like, a really good example. Here's a good example, right? We had, we couldn't get into our home network when we were away on vacation, right? And we needed to reconfigure the router. But the only way to connect to the router was the router's web server. And you can't connect to the router's web server remotely. You have to be in the house to do it. But I had Hamachi running on one of the machines in the house. So I SSH to the machine in the house over Hamachi, right? And then I made an SSH tunnel to the router's web server. And then on my laptop out while I was on vacation, I was able to bring up the router's configuration interface over this double SSH tunnel and reconfigure the router while I wasn't even at home. That's the kind of awesomeness. And it was totally secure. Every part of that transaction was totally encrypted and totally safe, and nobody's broken it. I mean, SSH has a lot of problems, but it's one of those things that it's so ludicrously important that, like, pretty much they're constantly ahead of the hackers. Like, they're finding things in SSH that are, like, might be security problems and fixing them, even though no one's taken advantage of them yet or even thought about taking advantage of them. It's, so the day when SSH is broken is a very bad day, and you'll see that'll be a lot worse than, like, some, IE Windows vulnerability. All real things are going to start breaking if SSH has a vulnerability in it. So, SSH is a tool that people should learn how to use. This OpenSSH is the most popular implementation of it, but there are many non-free implementations. But as far as I've been experiencing, they pretty much all work together just fine. They have no problem. Putty is the client you want to use if you're on Windows. If you're on anything else, you just have actual open SSH, but on Windows, you need to use weird stuff because Windows sucks.
It still just really amazes me that to this day, like Windows almost is in this ghetto when Windows works fine for just about everything you want to do. Except interacting with real development environments, you basically just can't SSH or SCP or do anything by default.
Well, not by default. No, not at all. But Putty, I think, is a great client. But in terms of servers, I mean, there are Windows SSH servers, but they're all shit except for the ones that cost a ton of money. Right? There are ones that actually are very expensive, and I've gotten like demos of them, and they're great once they work. But they're, all the free ones on Windows suck. Theoretically, you can use OpenSSH on Windows, the server. I've never gotten that to work ever. And even if it does work, I can't imagine it's very good. But every other machine, every Unix, Mac, Linux, just OpenSSH just works amazingly and perfectly every time, especially if you have a newer version of it. It's just great. Fantastic. And Ubuntu and OS X both have GUI key management utilities that just work, no problem. They handle the agent. They handle everything for you. In Windows, if you want to do that stuff, you need to use PuttyGen and Pageant, the Putty agent. And I've gotten those things to work. It's not difficult, but it does require some doing. It's not just, push button like it is in Mac and Linux.
One thing it seems strange to me that even a lot of technical people I know don't know they really don't know any of the advanced stuff around SSH and terminals.
Yeah, I mean, it's usually because especially IT people, are mostly Windows people, and Windows people just don't use SSH. They always use remote desktop or go to my PC or any of those sorts of things.
Oh my God. Pretty much whenever I work, I interview people. One of the things I always ask them is go to my PC and all that stuff, because I know they don't know what they're doing pretty readily by asking them those sorts of questions.
Go to my PC is actually a good product, but
it is.
If you use it as an IT tool, that's a problem.
Yep.
That should not be, same thing with VNC. Like, you go to those companies with like a VNC server running on every desktop, bad.
But I look at
RIT
way. And the way they teach people, and I remember that the first year of RIT as a freshman, every class basically forced you to use all of these Unix tools, and they weren't taught to you. It was just assumed that you either knew them or you'd figure them out. And you could tell the people who didn't figure them out because they didn't graduate.
Here's another example of why SSH is awesome, right? I was at RIT. I was a computer science student, right? Even if you could work on your projects at home, you needed to go to the computer science lab, and you had to submit it on their computer science computers and had to work on those computers, right? You couldn't submit it from your computer. The thing is, you could SSH to the computer science lab and use one of those computers even though you weren't sitting in front of it, which is very nice. You could just do all your computer science work from your dorm or your apartment. Smart people did that. Stupid people went into the CS labs and had to go all the way across campus or commute or whatever else the hell they did to get over there, right? So that's the kind of power that something like SSH has, and that's when I started using it, was when I decided I was going to save myself a trip across campus, because SSH is just that powerful. It's as powerful as a 2-mile walk.
All right, I got to go to work soon.
Oh, man, night work.
And there's a crazy thunderstorm, so I think we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, that's done.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via Odeo. Just click the link that says Send Me an Odeo on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it, as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.